Some deals change a life, but others transform a soul. Ethan Carter, a man who seemingly has it all, wealth, power, and prestige, finds himself missing the one thing he cannot buy, an heir. After 2 failed marriages, he resolves to abandon the pursuit of love and instead seek a purely transactional agreement. It is during this search that he encounters Anna Collins, a homeless young woman surviving through her fading dreams of art. Ethan presents a bold proposition. She will bear his child in exchange for a life-changing sum of money. A single signature binds the fates of 2 seemingly unconnected individuals. Yet neither foresees how this agreement will not only alter their lives, but also challenge their understanding of ambition, control, and trust. Can an emotionless transaction breach the barriers of the heart? Or will it lead to consequences neither could predict? Stay tuned to unravel this gripping story. The story begins. Ethan Carter, a 45-year-old man, had it all: wealth, power, and prestige. But that night, sitting alone in his mansion, he realized there was one thing money could not buy: an heir. He needed a child. However, Ethan had no desire for a traditional family. His 2 previous marriages had ended in failure and bitter disappointment. To him, love was an illusion, a source of complications and unnecessary pain. A child, though, that was different. A child was a legacy, an investment in the future, a means to preserve everything he had built. Ethan decided against seeking another emotional relationship. He wanted something clear, devoid of sentiment: a contract. With his resources, he was confident he could find someone willing to bear a child without questions or expectations. To Ethan, this was just another deal, one he would control entirely. The following morning, Ethan drove his sleek sports car through the city streets. Though his hands were on the wheel, his mind was consumed by the task of identifying someone who would accept his proposition. At a red light near the center, his gaze was drawn to a young woman sitting on the sidewalk, sketching on a soiled piece of paper. Her disheveled brown hair partially obscured her face, but her piercing blue eyes stood out against her tired, weathered features. She seemed invisible to the passers-by, yet to Ethan there was something about her that he couldn't ignore. As the light turned green, he drove on, attempting to dismiss her from his thoughts, but just a few blocks later, the image of her resolute expression lingered, compelling him to pull into a parking lot and grip the steering wheel. "This is madness," he muttered to himself, but the idea gnawed at him. Against his better judgment, Ethan turned the car around and drove back to where he had seen her. She was still there, this time leaning her paper against the wall as she sketched. Stopping at the curb, he rolled down his window, his voice cold and decisive. "You there, come here." The woman looked up, her wary eyes narrowing as she assessed the well-dressed man in the luxury car. She hesitated. "I'm not asking twice. Come here, I don't have all day." He pressed, his tone leaving no room for argument. Slowly and reluctantly, she rose and approached the car. Up close, Ethan could see the toll life had taken on her. Her frail frame, the weariness in her posture. Yet there was something unyielding in the way she carried herself, a defiance in her gaze. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice low but steady. For a moment, Ethan studied her before replying. "Get in. I'll take you somewhere to talk."
She scoffed, her laughter sharp and skeptical. "I'm not the kind of woman you're looking for, if that's what this is about." His jaw tightened, clearly displeased by her insinuation. "Don't be ridiculous. I don't have time for that. I just want to talk. Get in the car or stay here on the sidewalk. Your choice." She hesitated, his commanding tone giving her little room to refuse. Finally, she opened the door and climbed in. The atmosphere in the car was tense as Ethan drove to Serenity Cafe, a quiet spot removed from the city's noise. Once inside, They settled at a secluded corner table. "What's your name?" he asked. "Anna Collins," she answered, her eyes still guarded. "Why does that matter?" "Because I need to know who I'm dealing with," he replied, leaning forward slightly. "Tell me, Anna, why were you sitting on that sidewalk, sketching like nothing else in the world mattered?" She shrugged, avoiding his gaze. "What else is there to do? I've got nowhere to go. I've lost everything. But that's none of your business." Ethan rested his elbows on the table, his expression calm but intent. "Good. Then I'll get to the point. I have a proposition for you, something that could change your life." Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What kind of proposition?" "I want you to have my child," he said bluntly. For a moment, she blinked, as though she hadn't heard him correctly. "You're joking, right?" "I'm not. I'm completely serious. I'll cover all your expenses, provide you with everything you need during the pregnancy, and in the end, you'll receive a sum of money that will secure your future," he explained, his tone unwavering. She laughed bitterly, crossing her arms. "This has to be a joke. What kind of man makes that kind of offer to a complete stranger?" "The kind of man who knows what he wants and doesn't waste time," Ethan said matter-of-factly. "I don't need a relationship, Anna. I don't want emotional entanglements. I just want a child. It's that simple."
Anna stared at him, as though he had lost his mind. His words echoed in her head. "I want you to have my child." Anna wanted to reject the absurd proposition outright, but the cold, calculated gaze of Ethan Carter told her he was entirely serious. His steely logic cut through her defenses, leaving her stranded at the intersection of pride and harsh reality. "This is madness," Anna finally broke the silence. "No sane woman would agree to this." Ethan didn't flinch, his calculated composure unwavering. An instinct as natural to him as breathing. "No woman in your situation would refuse this," he replied bluntly. "I'm offering you a way out, comfort, stability, and a new life in exchange for something you already possess, the ability to bear a child." Anna folded her arms, trying to maintain a hardened exterior, but deep down, she knew he was right. Each day was a fight for survival. Yet the thought of trading away something as sacred as bearing a child solely for money made her stomach churn. "And what happens after?" she asked, her voice heavy with skepticism. "After the baby is born, then what?" Ethan leaned back in his chair as though he had anticipated this question. "After the child is born, you'll receive a significant sum of money to start over. No strings attached. You'll be free to do whatever you want." "No strings attached?" She let out a dry, bitter laugh. "How do I know you won't change your mind and drag me to court later?" Ethan held her gaze steadily before responding. "Anna, I am a businessman. I don't enter into agreements unless every party benefits. We'll have a binding legal contract. Neither of us will be able to alter the terms afterward." She remained silent, absorbing his words. The promise of safety, even temporary, was tempting. Right now, she had nothing, not even a place to sleep tonight. But she also understood the weight of the decision before her, one that could alter her life forever. "And if I say no?" she challenged, leaning forward slightly. Ethan allowed a faint, fleeting smile. "Then you return to the streets, continue scraping by, facing the cold and hunger? The choice is yours."
His words hit like a blow. She wanted to hate him for his coldness, for his ruthlessness, but what she hated more was the fact that he was right. He had backed her into a corner, and they both knew it. "Why are you doing this?"
she demanded, her tone sharp and accusatory. "A man like you, with all that money, why not adopt? Or find one of those wealthy women in your circle who are always bragging about their perfect children?" Ethan drew a deep breath, his voice taking on an even graver tone. "Because I want something that's mine, my bloodline. And because adoption or entanglements with someone in my social class come with complications I have no interest in managing. I want control, Anna. That's all." The cold detachment in his words made her look away, unsettled. She knew he was telling the truth, and somehow that made her feel even more vulnerable. "I need time to think," she said, trying to reclaim some semblance of control. Ethan nodded, as if expecting this. "You have 24 hours. After that, don't bother contacting me." He stood, leaving the cafe without another word. Anna watched him go, feeling as though she had been swept into a whirlwind she might never escape. As she walked the streets that evening, her mind was in turmoil. Ethan's words echoed relentlessly. Comfort, stability, a new life. She knew all too well what it meant to have nothing. The biting cold of the night reminded her that tomorrow would bring no relief, just another day of scrounging for food, enduring constant fear, and bearing the humiliation of being invisible to the world. She sat on a bench in the park, staring up at the overcast sky. Her mother's voice came back to her. "Opportunities knock only once, and you have to decide whether to seize them or let them pass." But at what cost, she wondered. Having a child, even as part of a transaction, was a monumental decision. But what if it was her only chance to escape this cycle of despair? Meanwhile, Ethan Carter sat in the living room, reviewing the meticulously crafted contract prepared by his legal team. He despised waiting, but he knew Anna Collins had limited options. Either way, he had accounted for every possible risk. If she refused, he would find someone else. It was that simple. The ringing of the intercom interrupted his thoughts. He picked up the receiver, the receptionist's voice informing him that Anna had arrived. "Send her up," he replied calmly. Moments later, the door opened. Anna stepped in, her weary but resolute eyes locking onto his. "I agree," she said bluntly, cutting off anything he might have said first. He rose to his feet, studying her carefully. There was no hesitation in her gaze, only the certainty of her decision. "Good, let's make it official." He motioned for her to sit as he retrieved the contract from the table. Anna stared at the document, reading the terms carefully. Everything was explicitly clear. She would be cared for throughout the pregnancy, with all expenses covered. In exchange, she would relinquish all rights to the child after birth and receive a substantial sum of money to start a new life. "This seems decisive," she murmured, her eyes scanning the lines. "Precisely what I intended," Ethan replied, his tone sharp. "And I hope it's what you want as well." Anna drew a deep breath. After a moment of hesitation, she picked up the pen. With one swift motion, she signed her name, finalizing the agreement that would forever change both of their lives. The signing of the contract was more than the culmination of a deal. It was the beginning of a new chapter in Anna Collins' life. Later that day, Madeline Harper, Ethan's assistant, escorted Anna to the black car waiting at the building's entrance. As she sat in the back seat, gazing out at the cityscape that once suffocated her, the world now seemed to carry a different meaning, a chance for a fresh start. Throughout the drive to Ethan's mansion, Anna remained mostly silent. But Madeline, ever the professional, attempted to fill the silence. "You'll love it there. It's quiet, spacious, and, most importantly, comfortable.
Her friendly tone stood in stark contrast to the cold atmosphere of the contract Anna had just signed. She merely nodded, still reeling from the whirlwind of events over the past few hours. When the car finally stopped in front of the estate, her eyes widened. The towering iron gates slowly parted, revealing manicured gardens stretching across the vast property. At its center stood the house, a blend of marble and glass, cold and calculated, much like its owner. Madeline led her inside. Anna barely had time to absorb the lavish details: sparkling crystal chandeliers, expansive marble staircases, and furnishings that looked like they belonged in a design magazine. Everything felt alien, an unsettling reminder that this wasn't her world. Yet, for now, it was her reality. "I'll take you to your room," Madeline said with a smile. "It's one of the best in the house." Anna followed silently. Upon entering, she saw a large bed draped in soft linen, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a bathroom larger than any apartment she'd ever lived in. "If you need anything, just call me. We're here to take care of you," Madeline said before leaving her alone. Anna sat on the edge of the bed, her hand grazing the smooth fabric. The sensation felt foreign. Just yesterday she had been sleeping on the cold, hard pavement, and now she was surrounded by luxury. But no matter how soft the surroundings, the weight of the situation pressed heavily on her. She wasn't a guest here. She was part of a transaction. In the days that followed, Anna tried to adjust to her new routine. Meals were served promptly, and a team of doctors conducted the initial health screenings. As expected, Ethan maintained his distance, focused on his business, and rarely present in the house. When he did appear, it was usually to receive updates from Madeline on Anna's progress. On one rare occasion, their paths crossed in the hallway. Anna, returning from a health check, noticed Ethan approaching, his stride straight and deliberate, his expression as composed as ever. "Are you well?" he asked, his tone more dutiful than concerned. Anna hesitated before replying. "I suppose I am." He nodded, refraining from extending the conversation. But before walking away, he turned back briefly. "If you need anything, let Madeline know. I want you to be comfortable." She didn't know how to interpret his words. Was it genuine kindness, or simply a calculated effort to ensure the agreement ran smoothly? Either way, that brief moment lingered in her mind. Despite being treated like royalty, Anna Collins couldn't ignore the conflict within her. One quiet evening, she stepped onto the balcony of her room, looking down at the vast garden bathed in moonlight. Everything was peaceful, a world away from the harsh reality she had once known.
"Am I doing the right thing?" she whispered to herself, wrapping her arms around her body against the chilly breeze. The thought of carrying a child and then giving it away grew increasingly complex. While the contract explicitly stated she would relinquish all rights to the child, she wasn't sure how she could handle the emotional toll. Meanwhile, Ethan Carter observed from a distance. He knew Anna was strong, but he also recognized the deep wounds she carried. Though he maintained his cold exterior, he found himself increasingly curious about her. Who was this woman who had agreed to such an unusual proposal? And why couldn't he completely dismiss the feeling that she might be more than just a part of his plan? One evening, Anna sat in the living room, flipping through a book she had taken from the shelf. She wasn't particularly fond of classic literature, but the house's stillness and the scent of old books offered a rare sense of comfort. Ethan entered unexpectedly, his presence startling her. He looked busy, holding a stack of documents in one hand. "I didn't expect to find you here," he remarked, pausing in the center of the room. "And I didn't expect you to talk to me," she replied, her tone tinged with dry humor. He frowned but didn't respond immediately. Instead, he placed the documents on a nearby table and sat in a chair across from her. "Are you settling in?" he asked,
folding his arms across his chest. "I suppose I am," she answered hesitantly, "but it still feels strange. It doesn't feel real." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "Feeling strange is expected. This is a contract, Anna, an arrangement. I'm ensuring everything goes according to plan." "That's what you do, isn't it? Plan everything, calculate everything, leave no room for mistakes?" He studied her carefully, as if deciding whether to continue the conversation. "That's how I built everything I have. Planning prevents failure," he finally replied. Anna let out a short laugh, shaking her head. "Sometimes failure is inevitable. You can plan for everything, but you can't control your emotions, Ethan." Her words hit like a blow. He leaned back in his chair, silent. Anna noticed his reaction, but said nothing further. Picking up her book, she left the room, leaving him alone with his thoughts.
Ethan remained seated, lost in contemplation. As the days passed, Anna gradually adjusted to life at Carter's mansion. Despite the luxury and comfort surrounding her, she couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. Every expensive piece of furniture, every meticulously chosen decoration seemed to remind her that this wasn't her world. Still, she adhered to her new routine: regular medical checkups and meals prepared by a private chef. Yet, amid the comfort, a sense of emotional emptiness lingered. At night, alone in her room, she reflected on what she had left behind. It wasn't much, but it was the only life she had ever known. Now everything felt beyond her control. What would it feel like to carry a child and then give it away? She tried to push the thoughts aside, but they haunted her, especially in the stillness of the night. While Anna wrestled with her internal conflicts, Ethan continued to watch her from a distance. He maintained his detached demeanor, but his curiosity grew stronger with each passing day. Amid his work and meetings, he often found his thoughts drifting to her. It wasn't love, or even romance, not yet. It was something deeper, an inexplicable need to understand the woman who had become part of his life in such an unusual way. One afternoon, returning from a long day of meetings, Ethan Carter spotted Anna Collins in the garden. She sat on a bench, her face tilted toward the sky, the soft glow of sunlight highlighting her contemplative expression. The scene was a stark contrast to the resolute image of her he'd built in his mind. For a moment, he hesitated, unsure whether to approach her. But then he walked forward. "Enjoying the garden?" he asked, his voice carrying its usual firmness. Anna turned slightly, startled, but quick to respond. "It's nice. Certainly better than the streets." He sat down beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. There was something about Anna's blunt honesty that unsettled him, yet he found himself unwilling to leave. "Have you adjusted to living here?" he asked. She shrugged, her eyes settling on the flowers blooming nearby. "It still feels strange, like I'm living someone else's life." Ethan remained silent for a moment before replying. "That's part of the arrangement. I want you to have everything you need so things proceed as planned." "As planned?" she repeated, a trace of irony in her tone. "Is that how you always live, planning every second of your life?" Her question caught him off guard. He was used to people agreeing with him, not questioning his methods. "Planning is what keeps things running smoothly," he said firmly. "Without it, everything falls apart." Anna let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. "I don't think you can control everything. Sometimes things happen whether you want them to or not." Her words left him more unsettled than he cared to admit. Standing abruptly, Ethan ended the conversation. "If you need anything, speak with Stephanie Harper," he said, before heading back to the house. A few days later, Ethan decided to accompany Anna to one of her medical checkups.
He rationalized it as ensuring everything was proceeding smoothly, but deep down, he felt an increasing sense of responsibility. Anna, though unsurprised, found herself questioning his decision internally. At the clinic, the routine tests were carried out. For the first time, they both heard the baby's heartbeat. A wave of unexpected emotion washed over Anna. Her eyes brimming with tears, she quickly tried to hide. Ethan, on the other hand, remained seated, his expression unreadable. Yet something in his gaze shifted. That simple sound seemed to touch a part of him he hadn't expected to feel. "Everything looks perfect," the doctor said with a warm smile. "You can start thinking about the next steps, like prenatal care." Anna nodded, but Ethan stayed silent. The drive back to the estate was heavy with unspoken thoughts. Ethan appeared deep in contemplation, while Anna struggled to find the words to bridge the growing silence between them. When they arrived, Ethan stepped out and opened the door for her, a small gesture that caught her off guard. "Thank you for today," Anna said as she got out. "It's the least I can do," he replied, avoiding her gaze. "I'll make sure everything continues to go smoothly." She watched him walk back into the house, his stride still precise and unwavering. Yet something about him seemed different. Perhaps the sound of the heartbeat had stirred something he'd long kept buried. Or maybe, she thought, she was imagining it. In the days that followed, Anna began to notice subtle changes. Ethan appeared more frequently in the common areas of the house, and their conversations, though brief, started to drift away from strictly business topics. He asked about her checkups, how she was feeling, and even suggested activities that might help her relax. One evening, as they dined in silence at the expensive dining table, Ethan broke the routine and asked, "Have you thought about what you'll do once this is over?" Anna, surprised by the question, looked up at him. It was the first time he had shown interest in her future. "I don't have any plans," she admitted honestly. Her gaze dropped to the empty space in front of her. "I still don't know what my life will look like after all this," she said quietly. Ethan nodded, appearing to consider her words carefully. "You'll have the resources to start over anywhere. Just make sure you do something meaningful with it." Anna looked at him, her curiosity growing. Behind the calculated coldness, there seemed to be a hint of genuine care. She couldn't quite explain the feeling, but for the first time, she didn't feel completely alone in the vast mansion. The next morning, Anna found a package placed carefully outside her door. It was wrapped neatly, accompanied by a small handwritten note, "To help you relax during your free time." Inside was a brand new sketchbook and a set of high-quality pencils. Anna froze. She hadn't expected Ethan Carter to remember her mentioning in passing how drawing helped her cope with her anxieties. She certainly hadn't thought he would act on it. That evening, while sitting in the garden, she noticed Ethan walking nearby. He stopped when he saw her. "Did you like the gift?" he asked, his tone calm as always. "Yes," Anna replied, holding the sketchbook in her lap. "Thank you. I didn't think you would do something like this." Ethan shrugged lightly. "I thought it might be good for you." Anna smiled faintly, clutching the sketchbook a little tighter. "It is. Really, it is." Despite the thoughtfulness of the gesture, Anna couldn't shake the emptiness that lingered within her. Life in the meticulously arranged mansion, with all its comforts, wasn't enough to dispel the turmoil in her heart. Every day felt like mere existence, not living. And yet, as she observed Ethan, she began to sense that beneath his stoic exterior, there was more to him than he let on. One morning, to her surprise, she received an unexpected request from Ethan. He wanted to speak with her after breakfast. The gesture was unusual given the distance he usually kept. After breakfast, she found him in the living room, standing by a stack of papers. "I want to discuss a few additional details about the contract," he said directly. Her heart sank slightly, imagining he was about to impose new conditions. "Additional details? I thought everything had already been settled," she replied, trying to mask her unease. Ethan studied her for a moment before continuing. "Nothing about the terms is changing. I just want to ensure you fully understand what will happen after the child is born. I don't want any surprises." Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself. "I think I understand. I'll leave, and you'll move on with your life." He nodded slightly. "Correct. But I also want you to know that if you ever need anything afterward, even if it's not part of the agreement, I'm willing to help. I don't want you to feel abandoned." Her eyebrows raised in surprise at his words. His tone was different, almost as if he were trying to convey something he didn't know how to express. "That's unexpected coming from you," she said, unable to suppress her wry tone. Ethan shrugged again, his usual guardedness returning. "I don't want complications. This is the best way to avoid them." Anna let out a short laugh, though something about the sincerity in his words made her reconsider her sarcasm. Perhaps he really was trying to change, even if he didn't quite know how. That afternoon, Anna decided to explore more of the mansion. Its sheer size, with endless corridors and rooms, felt overwhelming. The hallways were adorned with artwork so exquisite she couldn't fathom their value. As she walked down one long corridor, she came upon a small study at the end. The door was slightly ajar, and she peeked inside. Ethan was seated at the desk, though he didn't appear to be working. He held a framed photograph, staring at it intently. She couldn't make out the photo, but something about his posture caught her attention. For the first time, she saw him differently, vulnerable, lost in thought. She knocked gently on the door. Ethan startled, quickly setting the photo back on the desk. "Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude," she said hesitantly. He looked up, clearly surprised to see her. "It's fine." He regained his usual composure. "Do you need something?" "No, I was just exploring the house." She paused, feeling compelled to say more. "You looked like you were thinking about something important." Ethan was quiet for a moment before answering. "We all have things we prefer to keep to ourselves." Sensing he didn't want to delve deeper, Anna shifted the conversation. "This house is enormous. Do you live here alone all the time?" Ethan Carter nodded, crossing his arms over his chest. "It's more practical than you think. I don't like distractions, and here I have the space I need." Anna Collins studied him, trying to comprehend how someone could live amidst such opulence, yet remain so utterly alone. "It must feel strange," she said absent-mindedly, "to have all of this, but no one to share it with?" Ethan looked away, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm used to it. I don't need anyone to do what I do." Anna wanted to believe him, but there was something in his voice that suggested otherwise. Before she could respond, Ethan stood abruptly. "If you need anything, speak with Stephanie Harper," he said, bringing the conversation to an end. That night, Anna stepped out onto the mansion's balcony. The sky was clear, and the city lights glittered faintly in the distance. She sat down,
letting her thoughts wander through the chaos in her mind. She thought about the baby's heartbeat she had heard during the recent checkup, an inexplicable sound that resonated deeply within her. No matter how hard she tried to maintain emotional distance, it was becoming increasingly difficult. Footsteps behind her made her turn. Ethan appeared, looking tired, but retaining his usual composed demeanor. "You like it here, don't you?" he asked as he approached. "I like the silence. It helps me think." He stopped beside her. His gaze drifted to the distant city lights before he spoke again. "Thinking isn't always a good thing." Anna chuckled softly, though there was no humor in it. "Try telling that to someone who spends most of their time alone." Ethan was silent for a moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "Sometimes, even having someone beside you doesn't help." She looked at him, sensing a hidden sadness in his words, a vulnerability he had never revealed before. "Maybe you need something you can't control, Ethan," she said, speaking without overthinking her words. She didn't regret her words. Ethan Carter frowned slightly, as though he was about to reply, but decided against it. Instead, he turned and walked away, leaving Anna Collins alone with her thoughts. In the weeks that followed, Anna realized that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't maintain the clear emotional boundaries she had set between herself and Ethan. He remained enigmatic, but every so often, fragments of the man beneath the surface flickered into view. For Ethan, the struggle was equally perplexing. He had entered this arrangement expecting simplicity and absolute control. Yet now he was confronted with a truth he hadn't anticipated. Things were far more complicated than he'd imagined. And it was no longer just a part of his carefully constructed plan, and that realization unnerved him. The following week marked the time for another medical checkup. Anna woke early, her emotions a mixture of anticipation and curiosity. Time seemed to be slipping by faster than she expected, and the thought of seeing the baby for the first time, even just on a screen, made her heart race. She wondered if Ethan would accompany her again, as he had before. When she went downstairs for breakfast, Madeline Harper was discussing the day's schedule with him. "Are you ready?" Ethan asked, glancing up from the stack of documents in front of him. "Ready enough," Anna replied, trying to sound calmer than she felt. "Good. We'll go together." He didn't elaborate, and his tone left no room for debate. In the car, the silence between them was heavier than usual. Ethan, as always, appeared focused, but there was something different about his demeanor. Perhaps he was just as anxious as she was, though she knew he would never admit it. At the clinic, the doctor greeted them with a warm smile and motioned for Anna to lie down while he prepared the ultrasound equipment. "Today, we'll get a clearer view of the baby," he explained, adjusting the monitor. Anna fixed her eyes on the screen, trying to ignore the cool sensation of the gel on her abdomen. As the probe glided over her skin, she held her breath, anticipating tightening her chest. Ethan, standing beside her with his arms crossed, didn't take his eyes off the monitor. Then the sound filled the room, a strong, steady heartbeat. But there wasn't just one. There were two. "This is a surprise we didn't catch last time," the doctor said, pointing at the screen. "You're carrying twins." Anna Collins' eyes widened in shock. Twins? The possibility had never crossed her mind. A wave of emotion swept over her, astonishment mixed with a flicker of joy. Instinctively, she placed a hand on her stomach, trying to process the revelation. Beside her,
Ethan Carter remained silent for several moments. His usual stoic expression shifted, replaced by something Anna had never seen before: genuine astonishment. He leaned slightly forward, his gaze fixed intently on the monitor. "Two?" he asked, as if needing confirmation. "Two," the doctor replied with a reassuring smile. "Both are healthy and developing well." The silence that followed was nothing short of magical. Despite all her efforts to maintain emotional distance, she couldn't stop herself from feeling a connection to the two tiny lives growing inside her. Beside her, Ethan seemed equally affected. Though he said nothing, his eyes conveyed what words could not. For the first time, he looked vulnerable, moved by the thought of becoming a father to not one, but two children. The drive back to the mansion was filled with a different kind of silence. It wasn't the usual cold detachment that hung between them, but a meaningful quiet, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Finally, Anna broke the stillness. "You don't strike me as someone who's easily surprised," she said, attempting to ease the tension. Ethan glanced at her briefly before responding. "I'm not, but it's remarkable. Thinking that in just a few months, there will be two entirely new lives in the world depending on me." A pang shot through Anna's chest. She knew she would have to let go of the twins eventually, but hearing Ethan speak about them with such genuine care made her realize she was already more attached to them than she'd ever intended to. "They're depending on me too, at least for now," she said, doing her best to mask the emotions in her voice. Ethan nodded. "I know, and that's why I want to make sure you're okay, Anna. Not just physically, but in every other way as well. It matters to me."
She stayed silent, absorbing his words. It was the first time he had shown such genuine sincerity about what they were going through together. That evening, Anna sat on the balcony, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. Ethan appeared again, though this time there was an unusual hesitancy in his demeanor, a rare sight for a man so accustomed to confidence. "I can't stop thinking about what the doctors said today," he began, settling into the chair beside her. "Two children, two futures." Anna turned to him, surprised by his uncharacteristic openness. "That's a lot of responsibility, isn't it?" she asked. "It's more than responsibility," Ethan replied, his eyes focused on the horizon. "For the first time, I feel like there's something in my life I can't calculate. I can't plan who they'll become. I can't control how they'll grow." A shiver ran down Anna's spine as she listened. It was rare to hear Ethan admit that anything was beyond his control. She realized that, like her, he was changing, even if reluctantly. Sometimes that's a good thing. Not knowing what's coming can bring things you never imagined. Ethan turned to look at her, as if considering her words. For the first time, he seemed to accept that not everything in life could be meticulously planned. In the days that followed, news of the twins brought a quiet but noticeable change to the mansion. Madeline Harper began adjusting the nursery, now preparing for two babies instead of one. Anna watched the changes with mixed emotions. She knew the agreement required her to relinquish the children, but deep down, she understood it would be far more difficult than she had anticipated. As the preparations continued, both Anna and Ethan began to realize that the contract binding them together was transforming into something far more complex. The two unborn children were already reshaping their lives in ways neither had expected. A few days later, after another health checkup, Ethan insisted on escorting Anna to the car himself, a task he usually left to Madeline or other staff. "Are you okay?" he asked, holding the car door open for her.
Anna Collins nodded, surprised by the gesture. "I'm fine, thank you." On the drive back to the mansion, the usual silence between them was broken when Ethan Carter asked, "Is there anything you need? Something that could make you more comfortable?" Anna glanced at him, trying to read his expression. The question didn't feel superficial. There was a sincerity in his tone she wasn't sure how to interpret. "Not at the moment, but thank you for asking," she replied cautiously. He nodded and refocused on the road, but Anna couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing. Despite her lingering reservations, she sensed his concern was genuine. Back at the mansion, Anna began noticing more signs of change. One day, she found a new set of pillows and blankets in her room, accompanied by a simple note, "To help you rest better." She couldn't help but smile at the gesture. Small as it was, it carried a deeper meaning. That evening, as she sipped tea in the living room, Ethan entered and quietly sat in the chair opposite her. He seemed more at ease than usual, though his serious demeanor remained. "Did you like what I left in your room?" he asked directly. "I did. It was very thoughtful, thank you," Anna replied, her eyes studying him curiously. "I want to make sure you're comfortable. That matters to me," Ethan said, his gaze unwavering. Anna frowned slightly. While she appreciated his kindness, a wall of doubt still stood between them, one she couldn't seem to break down. "You're changing, Ethan. At least it seems that way, but I still don't understand why," she said bluntly. He looked at her for a moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. Finally, he sighed. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I am changing. But the truth is, I don't know how to be different. I'm not used to caring." The admission seemed to surprise him as much as it did her. It was rare for Ethan to acknowledge any kind of vulnerability, yet here he was, exposing a part of himself he usually kept hidden. That night, Anna sat on the balcony, gazing at the sky and reflecting on her conversation with Ethan. He wasn't what she had expected. Still unpredictable, still distant, but beneath the controlled exterior, there was a real person. She just wasn't sure if that was a good or bad thing. Meanwhile, in his office, Ethan stared at the contract that had defined his relationship with Anna. For the first time, he felt the weight of that document. He had entered this agreement with a clear goal, to have heirs and continue with his life. But now, things were no longer that simple. He knew he was starting to care, and that terrified him. The next morning, Ethan joined Anna for breakfast, a rare occurrence. "I want to talk about something," he said matter-of-factly. Anna looked up, curious. "What is it?" He hesitated before answering. "I know you still don't trust me, and I don't blame you. I've never been good at trusting others, and that's made me difficult." Anna stayed quiet, letting him continue. "I've been through things that taught me not to rely on anyone, to never let anyone get close enough to hurt me. But with you, with what we're building here, I'm starting to think maybe I was wrong." She blinked, surprised by his candor. It was rare for Ethan to talk about himself in such a way. "Everyone has walls, Ethan," she said softly. "But that doesn't mean we have to stay behind them forever." He nodded, as though her words were sinking in. "Maybe you're right. Change doesn't come easily for me." Anna offered a small smile. "No one ever said it would be." That afternoon, Ethan decided to join her for a walk in the garden. They began with small talk, but it wasn't long before the conversation shifted back to the twins. "Have you thought of any names?" he asked, catching her off guard. "No, I thought that was something you'd want to decide," she replied. "I think it would be fairer if we decided together," he said, surprising her again. Anna Collins realized that Ethan Carter was trying to be more open, more present. Though she remained cautious, she couldn't deny that he was making an effort.
As the sun set, they sat on a bench in the garden, watching the warm hues of the sky fade into twilight. "I never imagined I'd be here, doing this," Anna said, almost to herself. "Neither did I," Ethan replied, a faint smile crossing his face. "But maybe this is exactly where we're supposed to be." Anna glanced at him, noticing for the first time that Ethan seemed to be letting his guard down. Perhaps, just perhaps, this wasn't merely a contract, but the beginning of something far greater. The morning began like any other. Anna could feel the weight of her pregnancy in every movement, but she was determined to stick to her routines. Ethan, as usual, was in his office, buried in documents. Their interactions had grown more frequent, becoming a quiet comfort for them both. But that day, something was different. Just before lunch, Anna felt a sudden pain, unlike the usual discomfort of pregnancy. She tried to dismiss it, assuming it was nothing more than a typical cramp, but the intensity quickly escalated. Panicked, she called for Stephanie Harper, who immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. "Ethan needs to know about this," Madeline Harper said, helping Anna sit down. "You might be going into labor." Anna nodded, struggling to regulate her breathing as another wave of pain hit her. Madeline rushed to find Ethan, and within minutes, he appeared in the room. Seeing her, his usual calm demeanor gave way to visible worry, a rare sight. "Anna, what's happening?" he asked, hurrying to her side. "I think it's happening," she gasped. "The babies are coming." For a brief moment, Ethan froze, but he quickly regained his composure. Pulling out his phone, he gave clear instructions to prepare the car and ordered Madeline to gather everything needed for the hospital. "We're leaving right now," he said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. The drive to the hospital was a whirlwind of emotions. Anna focused on managing the pain, while Ethan, seated beside her, watched her with an intensity that was equal parts worry and determination. During the ride, Ethan reached for her hand, a gesture that felt both instinctive and deeply significant. "We're almost there," he said, gently squeezing her hand. "You're going to be okay. We're going to be okay."
She saw something unexpected, genuine gratitude. "They're perfect," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. Anna nodded, still holding the baby boy, tears streaming freely down her face. For once, she didn't care about hiding them. That night, as Anna rested in her room, Ethan remained in the observation area, sitting beside the twins. He watched them sleep, feeling a surge of emotions he didn't know how to process. For the first time, he realized these children weren't just part of a plan or a legacy. They were his connection to something greater, something he had never allowed himself to feel. True love. Madeline Harper entered quietly, carrying a cup of coffee. She set it down on the nearby table and asked softly, "Mr. Carter, is everything all right?" Ethan looked at her, clearly struggling to find the right words. "For the first time in a long time, I think everything is." Madeline smiled and left him alone with his thoughts and the two tiny lives that had already begun to change him. Meanwhile, in her room, Anna woke to a heavy sense of emptiness. Though she wanted to feel happiness, the contract hung over everything like a shadow. The twins, now the center of her existence, wouldn't remain hers for long. But when she looked toward the door and saw Ethan enter, carrying both babies, something shifted inside her. He looked different, as though the moment had transformed not only his relationship with the children, but also with her. He approached the bed, carefully placing the baby boy into her arms, before sitting beside her with the baby girl. "I don't know how, but this has changed everything," he admitted, his eyes fixed on the twins. Anna nodded, knowing that no matter how difficult the days ahead would be, this moment was a miracle she would never forget. Months passed, and Ethan's mansion grew usually quiet. Anna knew what the day meant. The weeks since the twins' birth had been a bittersweet blend of joy and heartache. She loved them more than she ever thought possible. But the contract was clear. Her time here was coming to an end. Today was the day she would leave it all behind.
Anna didn't respond, but his words brought her an odd sense of calm amidst the chaos. At the hospital, everything happened quickly. The medical team, well prepared thanks to Ethan's meticulous planning, whisked Anna into the delivery room. He stayed by her side throughout, refusing every request from the staff to leave. "I'm staying," he said firmly, holding Anna's hand. "I'm not going anywhere." In those hours, Ethan witnessed something he never imagined, Anna's strength as she brought their 2 children into the world. Every moment stretched into eternity, charged with a level of intensity he had never experienced. Finally, the first cry pierced the air, small but powerful, rippling through the room like a wave of emotion. "A boy," the doctor announced with a smile. "A healthy, beautiful boy." Ethan felt his heart race, his eyes fixed on the baby being carefully placed on the table nearby. Before he could process what had just happened, a second cry rang out. "A girl," the doctor said, his voice full of joy. "Your daughter." Exhausted but radiant, Anna looked at the 2 babies being cleaned and wrapped in soft blankets. She longed to hold them, but she knew this moment would be fleeting. Ethan Carter stood nearby, silent but visibly moved. When he held the baby boy for the first time, the stern lines of his face softened in a way Anna had never seen before. He wasn't just looking at an heir, he was witnessing pure life, a connection he had never experienced. When he cradled the baby girl, he closed his eyes for a moment, as if to etch this memory into his mind. When he opened them, he looked at Anna, and in his gaze, she packed a few belongings into a small suitcase, her gaze lingering on the cribs where the twins slept peacefully. Tears threatened to spill, but she refused to cry. She didn't want her final memories to be colored by weakness. She reminded herself that she had signed the agreement and tried to convince herself it was the right thing to do. Madeline knocked gently on the door, stepping in with a concerned expression. "Is everything ready?" she asked softly. Anna nodded, swallowing the emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "Yes, thank you for everything, Madeline." The assistant hesitated before speaking. "Are you sure this is what you want? I feel like there's something more between you and Mr. Carter." Anna forced a faint smile, though her heart felt heavy. "This isn't about what I want. It's about what we agreed to." Madeline didn't press further, nodding instead before leaving the room, promising to inform Ethan that Anna was ready to leave. As she descended the staircase with her suitcase in hand, Anna saw Ethan waiting in the foyer. He stood near the front door, his eyes fixed on her. The cold, calculating man she had met months ago was gone. In his place was someone who looked almost fragile, as though he were on the verge of losing something irreplaceable. "Everything's ready," Anna said, breaking the silence. Ethan Carter didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a step closer, his gaze intense. "Are you really going to leave, Anna?" he asked, his voice low, almost husky. Anna Collins felt her throat tighten, but she held firm. "That was the agreement. I fulfilled my part. It's time for me to go." Ethan stood still for a moment before reaching into his coat pocket and pulling out the contract. He held the document between his fingers as though it were nothing more than a meaningless scrap. "This contract," he began, his voice steadier now, "was never meant to define what's happening between us." Before Anna could respond, Ethan tore the contract into pieces, letting them fall to the floor.
The sound of ripping paper echoed through the foyer like a declaration. "I don't want you to leave, Anna. I don't want this to end here."
She stared at the shredded pieces scattered on the ground, her heart racing. But the pain and fear she'd carried for so long made her hesitate. "Ethan, you can't just tear up a contract and expect that to change everything. Life doesn't work like that," she said, her voice trembling. He stepped closer, his eyes filled with raw emotion. "I know. Nothing about this has been simple for me, but these past months have taught me something I was too afraid to admit before. I need you, Anna. Not just because of the twins, but because you've brought something into my life I didn't even realize I was missing." His words left her shaken, but she shook her head, determined to maintain the distance between them. "And how do I know this is real?" she asked, her voice quivering. "How do I know you won't change your mind, that you won't walk away when things get hard?" Ethan took a deep breath, as if battling his own insecurities. "Because I've lived without feeling anything for anyone, and all it left me with was emptiness. You've shown me that I don't have to be afraid of connection, of being human. Yes, it scares me, but I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you." Tears began streaming down Anna's face, but she still couldn't cross the barrier of doubt. "I love you, Ethan," she admitted, her voice breaking. "But you don't know how hard it is for me to trust again. My whole life I've been abandoned, overlooked. How can I believe you won't do the same?" Ethan stepped closer, so near she could feel his breath. "Because you've changed everything for me. And I'm not the kind of man who says that lightly. I don't know how to prove it to you, but I'm willing to try every day for the rest of my life if you let me." His words struck at the core of her defenses. Anna felt something within her begin to break apart, replaced by a stronger emotion. She knew the risks, but for the first time, she thought they might be worth taking. "And what if it doesn't work?" she whispered, almost afraid to hear the answer. Ethan took her hands, his gaze unwavering. "Then we'll try again. And again if we have to. I won't give up on you, Anna. Not ever." The world seemed to stop. Anna felt her doubts melt away, replaced by something stronger: hope. She looked into Ethan's eyes and realized he was truly ready to let go of control, to break down his barriers for her.
Finally, she nodded, tears falling freely. "Okay, I'll stay." Ethan exhaled in relief and pulled her into a tight embrace. For the first time, Anna felt like she belonged. The soft glow of dawn filtered through the windows of Ethan's mansion. Anna woke to the gentle sounds of stirring from the nursery next door. There was something different about this morning, something lighter. For the first time in what felt like forever, she didn't feel the weight of uncertainty or the tension of the contract looming over her. She had chosen to stay, and more importantly, Ethan had chosen to open his heart, allowing them to build something together. She rose and walked to the nursery. Inside, the twins were awake, making soft cooing noises as they wriggled in their cribs. Anna leaned down, stroking their rosy cheeks and whispering words of love. Before she could fully immerse herself in the moment, the sound of footsteps behind her made her turn. Ethan stood in the doorway, quietly observing with a faint smile. His eyes, which usually carried an air of control and detachment, now seemed softer, filled with what Anna Collins could only describe as love. "Good morning," he said, stepping into the room and approaching the twins. "Good morning," Anna replied as Ethan picked up the baby boy. He looked down at the child in his arms, his eyes glimmering with joy. "I never thought this would feel so natural," he admitted, almost to himself. Anna smiled, watching as Ethan grew more comfortable in his role as a father. There was something profoundly satisfying about seeing his devotion to their children. The weeks that followed were a time of adjustment,
Though still inexperienced, Ethan worked hard to learn how to care for the twins, always ready to help Anna when he could. He changed diapers, clumsily at first, fed bottles, and even sang lullabies in his gravelly, off-key voice. To Anna, his dedication was undeniable proof of how much he was changing. One evening, as they sat together on the sofa while the twins slept peacefully in their cribs nearby, Ethan turned to Anna with a serious but calm expression. "I've been thinking about something."
"What is it?" she asked, curiosity lighting her features. He took a deep breath before continuing. "I want us to be a real family, not just because of the twins, but because I want you by my side. Forever." Anna was silent, surprised by the intensity of his words. She had sensed their feelings for each other growing, but hearing him say it so plainly was something she hadn't expected. "Ethan, that's a big step," she said, trying to process the moment. "Are you sure?" He took her hand, his gaze steady and unwavering. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I know this won't be easy, and I know I made mistakes at the start, but I want to build something with you. Something that's not based on a contract or obligation, but on love." His sincerity was undeniable, and Anna felt tears welling in her eyes. She nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "I want that too." A few weeks later, an intimate ceremony was held in the mansion's garden. Only a handful of close individuals attended, including Madeline Harper and the staff who had become an essential part of their journey. The day was perfect, bathed in warm sunlight and a gentle breeze that rustled through the flower arrangements. Anna wore a simple yet elegant dress, while Ethan donned a sharp suit. The twins, dressed adorably in tiny matching outfits, were held by Madeline, whose eyes shimmered with happy tears. When Ethan and Anna exchanged vows, they spoke from the heart. Ethan promised to become the man she deserved, someone who would stand by her no matter what. Anna, in turn, vowed to trust him and help him become the best version of himself. His sincerity was undeniable, and Anna felt tears welling in her eyes. She nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "I want that too." After the ceremony, life continued with its challenges, but also with countless moments of joy. Together, Ethan and Anna built a home filled with love for the twins. They navigated sleepless nights and the endless demands of raising two infants, finding exhaustion and happiness intertwined.
One night, as Anna rocked the twins to sleep, Ethan appeared in the doorway. He stepped toward her and, without saying a word, wrapped his arms around her. Anna leaned her head against his chest, listening to the familiar rhythm of his heartbeat. "Thank you for not giving up on me," he whispered. "Thank you for showing me I could trust again," she replied. Months later, on a sunny afternoon, Ethan Carter and Anna Collins sat together in the garden, watching their twins play on the soft grass. The children's joyful laughter echoed, spreading pure happiness throughout the space. Anna turned to Ethan, who was seated beside her, and noticed the serene smile on his face. "Are you happy?" she asked, her voice full of sincerity. He looked at her, then at their children, before answering. "I never thought I could be this happy. You've given me more than I ever knew I needed. A family, a purpose, love." Anna smiled, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. "And you've shown me that love can be built, even after hardship. Thank you for that." As they shared a tender kiss, the twins began babbling sounds that resembled mama and dada. Both Ethan and Anna laughed, overwhelmed with emotion, and they leaned closer, wrapping their arms around the little ones with unwavering love. That moment, simple yet profound,
stood as proof that they had found something real. Their lives were far from perfect, but they were filled with love, understanding, and hope, and that was enough to keep them moving forward. The story of Ethan and Anna serves as a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and the courage to change and become a better version of oneself. If you were in Anna's position, would you have the strength to trust again? Or, if you were Ethan, would you be willing to let go of control and open your heart to love? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story could inspire others and help them see hope in their challenges. If this story has touched your heart, don't forget to share it with your friends and family to spread the message of love, trust, and second chances. Thank you for supporting the channel. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. The stories shared here are curated from various sources and do not represent any specific individual or organization. They are intended to spread meaningful human values and have been rewritten with the assistance of AI. If there are any inaccuracies, we kindly ask for your understanding. Wishing you all the best in life.